conversation topic today is today's most popular diets. So we're just going to go through and highlight some of the pros and cons of 4 or 5 of the most popular diets out on the market today, and just talk about what to keep in mind when you're looking at a diet. So as you can see from these different tabloid pictures, it's very popular to have a lot of different diets out on the market, and the diet industry is an industry. It makes money, and so there are a lot of ulterior motives behind a lot of these diets. And so there's a lot of conflicting information out there, things promising that you can lose a lot of weight very fast by eating these certain foods or doing this cleanse or that cleanse. And so we want to be able to recognize what are fad diets. As a consumer, we don't want to be led astray by these ulterior motives. So a fad diet is a diet that promises quick weight loss through what is usually an unhealthy and unbalanced diet. Fad diets are also targeted at people who want to lose weight quickly and without exercise, so people that are looking for a quick and easy fix. And a lot of times fad diets might help you lose weight, but some of that weight might actually be water or even muscle mass, so you're losing weight that you don't want to lose. You want to make sure that you're losing fat. And so just looking at the weight on the scale can be misleading. When you're researching diets and supplements, you'll likely come across a lot of conflicting information, which can be confusing. So for example, one article might say that carbs are good, and another one might say that they're bad. So how can you tell which one is right? You also find a lot of information about how you should eat and how you should, and then lose weight. So let's just take a second and recognize what fad diets are and how you can recognize their claims. So if it promotes rapid weight loss, so it might say something like lose 30 pounds in 30 days. For the average person, that's not a healthy amount of weight loss. The recommended amount of weight loss is half a pound to no more than 2 pounds a week. If it eliminates certain food groups, so if it focuses on eliminating all sugars or all fats or all this or that, if it says that all carbs are bad, then that should be a red flag. We're trying to focus on a balanced diet, and so that is completely taking out one of your major food groups. If it seems too good to be true. So if it says something like you can eat whatever you want and you can still lose weight, if it's something like that, if it sounds too easy, too good to be true, then it probably is. Also, keep in mind if it comes with warnings, if it kind of sounds like the warning for a drug or something like that, then that should for sure be a red flag. So if it says something about it can cause liver damage or heart problems, toxicity, or other things like that, then that should for sure be a red flag. And then also, if you think it's making false claims, like if it says you can drink this and it'll bind to your fat and then melt your fat away, things like that. If it's something totally new and sounds kind of off science-wise, then that should also be something you should try to avoid. So we're just going to go through 4 or 5 of some of the most common diets currently, and I'm not going to say or recommend one or not recommend the other. I'm just going to try and give you an unbiased look at the pros and cons of each diet and just help give you tools of things to consider when you're looking at different diets. So the first one we're going to go over is called the paleo diet. So the whole idea behind this is that we want to eat like our ancestors in the Paleolithic era. So it's also called the caveman diet. So that looks like focusing on eating higher protein and high fat, but then lowering your carbs. And then also focusing on foods that have a low glycemic index, and that just means foods that don't affect your blood sugar as much. So that would be eating a lot of meat, fish, eggs, veggies, fruits, nuts, seeds, things like that, and then avoiding a lot of processed foods, sugar, soft drinks, grains, a lot of dairy products. And then one thing to keep in mind is that it does have you avoid legumes. And so that is just one thing to keep in mind. Some people think that that's a good way to avoid carbs and things like that, but it can also be a healthy way to get a balanced diet. So just keep in mind that that is one thing it has you avoiding. So pretty much it's not restricting how much you can eat. It's just guiding you to what you eat and eating better foods that are focusing on higher fat and protein and lower carbs. So with any diet, there's some pros and cons. So for the paleo diet specifically, some pros, some good things about this diet is that generally a lot of people on this diet feel like they are full. They don't feel like they're starving or going hungry because you're eating plenty of vegetables and protein and healthy fats, so that makes you feel full and satisfied. Another pro is that it can improve your bloating, so you can have less bloating, mainly because you're cutting out a lot of processed salty foods and you're taking in a lot of fiber, and so that results in less bloating. A lot of people find that they enjoy learning more about what they're eating and experimenting with new meals and just learning about how to cook healthy in the kitchen. Another pro is that you're intaking a lot of fruits and veggies, and so that's really good. You're getting in a lot of healthy nutrients and a lot of fiber, and that can lead to overall health and just a lot of weight loss potential. So that is a good thing that it really focuses heavily on fruits and veggies. And then another pro, lastly, is that it can be sustainable. A lot of people on this diet find that it's not a fad diet, that it's something that they can adhere to, and it's a sustainable lifestyle, since it's all focusing on learning how to eat clean. Some of the cons is that it can be more costly than your current lifestyle if you're used to going to fast food restaurants and paying $5 or less for a meal. It's going to be more costly to buy fresh produce, and also since it focuses heavily on protein, that protein can be a lot of the meat is more expensive to buy, and so that's just one thing to keep in mind. Also focuses on avoiding grains and beans, so that's another thing to keep in mind because those can be a really good base for a lot of healthy, balanced meals. For certain people, a con to this diet is that you have to consume, or it's encouraged to consume a lot of animal products to get a lot of that fat and protein. And so if you are against consuming animal products, then this is probably not the best diet for you. It can also be difficult to eat paleo in today's society, mainly because of the options that are out there. A lot of our foods do have a lot of carbs in them, and so if you're used to going out with your friends a lot to eat, or just going out to eat yourself, it can be a hard transition to then need to cook a lot at home. And so for some people, this diet can be more restrictive, even though it doesn't restrict the amount of calories that you're eating. It does restrict a lot of the carbs and processed foods that are convenient for a lot of people. Um, so when you're looking at any diet, really, the goal should not to be go for this one, say you don't want to go full paleo for only a couple of weeks and then just go back to eating how you were before. But really, the goal should be just to rethink your relationship with food and develop a strategy that you can live with permanently. So the next thing we're going to go over is juice cleanses. So these aren't necessarily a diet, or hopefully they shouldn't be. A lot of times people go on juice cleanses because they want to get rid of a lot of toxins in their body, hopefully not necessarily to lose a lot of weight. So juice cleanses are still very controversial, but many experts do believe that a short juice cleanse, if it lasts only for a couple of days, might be good for you. But again, there's a lot of controversy out there. So it cleanses, cut out a lot of foods which could lead to deficiency. So you're cutting out a lot of foods that have a lot of nutrients and vitamins that are good for you. And so if you do that for too long, your body could become deficient in certain things. A lot of people might actually lose weight while on a juice cleanse because you are losing a lot of water for the first thing. So since you're not intaking a lot of solid food, your body can get rid of a lot of water because it uses water to help process those solid foods in your GI tract. So you're getting rid of a lot of water weight. So you might see some weight loss. Another thing to keep in mind that with juice cleanses, a lot of times you're intaking a lot of sugar, and so that can be an overload on your system. So now we're just going to look at some of the pros and cons of a juice cleanse. So if you're thinking about doing one of these, just keep all of these things in mind. Some pros to the juice cleanse is that it can be beneficial for your health if you're looking to get rid of some toxins in your body. Our body should be able to rid itself of the toxins already. That's what you have different organs for, but some people believe that they need to take an extra step to aid their body in helping clean it out. And it can also help you rehydrate because you are drinking a lot of water throughout the day because there's water in fruits and veggies. So when you juice those things, there's some water in there. So that can help rehydrate you and make you feel better. Some cons to juice cleansing is that you are intaking a lot of excessive sugars, and so that can really confuse your body. So that is something to really keep in mind, especially if you have certain health things like diabetes or you're at risk for diabetes. Then definitely talk to a healthcare professional before considering getting on a juice cleanse. Again, like I said earlier, it can lead to potential serious deficiencies in certain nutrients and vitamins because you're avoiding certain foods. A lot of people look at this as kind of a quick fix. You know, they have an event they want to go to, so they want to drop some weight really quickly. So they go on a juice cleanse, and then the weight that they lose is a lot of water weight and then maybe even some muscle. And then when they go back to eating the way they were after their event, they gain all of it back, and a lot of what they gain can be fat. And so not only did you lose some muscle at the end of it, you don't necessarily gain that muscle back, but you gain it back into fat. And so that is why we want to avoid yo-yo dieting and quick fix diets. When you're on a juice cleanse, it can also be difficult and dangerous to work out because you just don't have the supplies that your body needs to, and the energy that your body needs to work out in a healthy way. It also does not necessarily reset your metabolism as some people might believe. And then, like I said earlier, it can be dangerous for certain medical conditions. So the next diet that we're going to go over is called the ketogenic diet, or you might also know it as the keto diet. And so this is focusing on very high fat, moderate amount of protein, and very, very low carbs. So if you can see over at the pie chart, that would be 70% fat, 25% protein, and only 5% carbs. And so this is kind of the exact opposite of a normal balanced diet. A normal balanced diet would put carbs at least about 50%, and here you're limiting it down to 5%. And then in a balanced diet, fats and protein would be about even, maybe a little bit more on the protein. And so right now, this 70% fat, very, very high fat intake. And the whole point of the keto diet is you want to put your body in a state of ketosis. So ketosis is just a process in the body where it helps you survive when food intake is low. So during this state, we produce ketones, which are produced from the breakdown of fats in the liver. So pretty much what that means is our body switches from using carbs as a fuel source for energy and using fats that are stored in our liver. And so you're just getting your body in a state of low food intake or low carb intake so that it doesn't have carbs to use for energy. So then it uses the fat in the liver. So this mainly looks like eating a lot of meats, focusing on leafy greens and above ground veggies. So avoiding veggies that you pull from the ground like potatoes and carrots, things like that, but focusing again on those leafy green above ground veggies. Eating a lot of high fat dairy, a lot of nuts and seeds because they have a lot of healthy fats in them, avocados and berries, so avoiding other fruits like starchy fruits, but berries is one fruit that you can eat, and then coconut oil, and then you're avoiding a lot of carbs, which are grains and sugars, some fruits, again, the starchy vegetables like bananas, and then also avoiding tubers, which are pretty much like potatoes and things, again, that are grown in the ground. So the pros and cons of the keto diet. Some pros is that it can be a very useful tool to treat obesity in the hands of a physician. And I really want to stress the fact that it needs to be in the hands of a physician, because if you truly are in a state of ketosis, consuming high fat up to 70% of your diet, then there are a lot of different things that need to be monitored to make sure that you are doing that in a healthy way and that your body can handle that. Another pro is that it can help your blood sugar stabilize, mainly because you're avoiding a lot of carbs, which can spike your blood sugar. And then it can also help detox you from sugar. Some of the cons that you might experience is something called the keto flu. So this is not actually the flu, but you have flu-like symptoms. You might feel lightheaded, dizzy, you might be very fatigued, have brain fog, lack of motivation, and irritability. So you might not be very pleasant to be around. And that's mainly just because your body is used to having carbs as a fuel source. And so since your body doesn't have that, it's not used to that. And so it feels off, it feels weird, and is trying to figure out how to get energy. Another con is that it can be very difficult to stick to long term because it is so extreme, to the point of limiting carbs to 5% and having such a high fat intake. And so just that alone can be very difficult to stick to. And then another big consideration, and a big reason why we say it needs to be handled in the hands of a physician, is that high fat intake, 70% of your intake of food, can impact heart health. And so when you're consuming that many fats, all that fat can't be healthy fat. A lot of it is going to be fat that affects your cholesterol in a negative way. And so those are things you want to be mindful of, and to have a doctor monitoring that, and also give their input knowing your medical history. Um, Okay, the second to last diet that we're going to go over is something called intermittent fasting, and you can do this in a lot of different ways. So I'm just going to talk about two different very popular ways to do intermittent fasting. So one way, as you can see, is called the 5-2 diet, and that is just you eat normally for 5 days, and then you fast for 2 days, so non-consecutive days, so just not 2 days in a row. And when you're fasting, you're really just limiting your carb or your calorie intake to about 500 or 600 calories on those 2 days. So that's one way to do intermittent fasting. Another popular way to do it is you fast for 16 hours of the day and you eat for 8 hours of those days of the day. And so that often looks like maybe fasting from 8 p.m. until noon the next day, and then you just eat from noon to 8, maybe even just limiting that to 2 meals, so lunch and dinner between the hours of 12 and 8. So you're getting all of your calories in those 2 meals. So the pros of the 5-2 diet or intermittent fasting in general is that a lot of people on it that have adjusted to being on intermittent fasting for a long period of time say that their cognitive function has been improved because they've kind of trained their body not to just be hungry at certain parts of the day, but just to be hungry when it actually needs fuel. And so the hours that you're not eating, you're cognitive function is improved because you're not distracted by needing energy and food intake. Another pro is that fasting for short periods of time can give your digestive system a rest because it's not needing to constantly be digesting food. It may improve a number of health indicators like blood pressure and metabolic rate, but there's still research out there trying to determine what specifically about this diet causes those effects. Some cons of the 5-2 diet or intermittent fasting is that if you're restricting foods, again, that can lead to nutrient deficiencies. And so if you, for 2 of those days, are restricting your diet to only 500 calories, it can be very difficult, almost impossible to get in all of the vitamins and minerals that you need. Um, this may not be a sustainable diet for a lot of people because fasting can be difficult to maintain over a long period of time, especially because a lot of our social functions have to do with eating. And so, if you are used to going out for breakfast or going out to dinner with people at night, those couple of days that you're fasting can be very difficult because you might have to just say no to some social functions or feel very hungry at those things. So, that's something to keep in mind. Another con is that after fasting, you might find yourself overeating. So it can be hard to do this in a correct way and balanced way. A lot of people, when they restrict themselves so much to the point of fasting, when you're finally able to eat, you find yourself overeating and indulging because you've restricted yourself so much. Another con is that exercising on fasting days is not necessarily safe because you just don't have the energy supply to do so. And it's not a suitable diet for a number of people, specifically pregnant women, type 1 diabetics, really not suitable for children or people recovering from surgery because you need energy and food to help your body recover from surgery. And then another really important thing to keep in mind since you're fasting with this diet is that it could eventually encourage eating disorders. And so that is just something to keep in mind. So the final diet that we're going to go over is called the Mediterranean diet. And pretty much the general idea behind this is that people in the Mediterranean tend to have healthier hearts, and so people have started looking at their diets, and this is pretty much just geared toward trying to eat like the people do in the Mediterranean. So the basic principles of the diet is that you want to focus on a heavy consumption of fruits and vegetables, whole grains, beans, olives, nuts, seeds, and then possibly a moderate intake of wine, and then lean meats and a very low intake of processed foods. And then another really good thing about this diet is that it does encourage exercise, which is a very important part of any diet and healthy lifestyle. This is a pyramid kind of showing you visually what the Mediterranean diet looks like. So at the very bottom of the pyramid, as you can see, it is encouraging to be physically active every day. And so that is one of the big things about this diet is that is part of the diet. If you adhere to it, is exercising every day. So that can be just going out for a walk or dancing, bike riding, sports. So about 30 minutes a day, and you will get your recommended amount of activity for the week. And then as far as food goes, every day it is encouraging lots of fruits and veggies, whole grains, olive oils, beans, nuts, legumes, and seeds. And so every single day you should be consuming a majority of those types of foods. And then above that, as you can see, less often, maybe twice a week or more than that, focusing on getting some fish and seafood in. So a lot of deep sea fish, salmon and tuna specifically have a lot of those healthy fats, the omega-3 fatty acids, which improves your HDL, which is your good cholesterol number. So incorporating that into your diet at least twice a week. And then even less frequently than that, maybe once a week, a couple of times a week, having moderate portions of poultry, eggs, cheese, and yogurt. And then even less often than that, so maybe only a couple of times a month, eating some meats and sweets. So that would be like red meats because you're already getting in some fish and chicken. And then over to the left, you can see it encourages you to drink water every single day. And then also you can have red wine in moderation. And then the pros and cons of the Mediterranean diet. The pros is that it promotes a healthy heart because it is focusing on a lot of those healthier fats that improve your cholesterol numbers. It's not very restrictive, which as you're going to see with the cons, it can be a good and bad thing. So if you're someone who doesn't like being put in a box and, having all of your options very limited, then this can be a good diet for you because it just is more of a general guideline and you can kind of figure out what that looks like for you. Another pro is that it can help reduce cholesterol because it's focusing on eating more unsaturated fats. It can also promote good circulation and it may also help with weight loss depending on what your diet consisted of before because you're cutting out a lot of the bad types of fat and also processed foods. So this diet, along with a lot of the other diets we've gone over today, again, don't focus necessarily on calorie restriction, but more so what foods you should and should not eat. And so if you are wanting to lose weight and be in a calorie deficit, then you could do this diet along with setting a certain amount of calories per day that you can eat. But this diet alone does not restrict the amount of calories you can eat. So some of the cons of the diet is that it can be expensive. Again, all depends on what your diet looked like before because you're not going to be able to eat out a lot, especially eating out with fast food on this diet. And so it can be more expensive to buy this food at the grocery store, especially since it's focusing on a lot of fresh foods, fruits and veggies, and then fish can also tend to be more expensive, so that's something to keep in mind. And then for some people, depending on their personality, a con for this diet is that it's not very structured. So it doesn't tell you specifically what each meal looks like. It's very broad, and so for some people that can be good, and then for some people it can be bad because it can be hard for them to really figure out, so what does it actually look like being on this diet? So that's another thing to keep in mind. So now we've gone over a handful of different popular diets today, and I just want to leave you with some different things to consider because 10 years from now, 15 years from now, there's going to be another handful of popular diets out there. So just always keep these things in mind when you're looking at diets and trying to figure out what is best for you nutritionally. So really consider if the diet is based on scientific, sound, and proven nutritional principles, if it promises a reasonable amount of weight loss, or if it's more of a quick fix type of diet. And again, just remember, if it sounds too good to be true, then it probably is. Another thing to consider is to think about the foods that diet or that plan encourages and just think about if it sounds appealing to you. If there's a big yuck factor, if you don't really like a lot of the foods, if you're not a meat person, then certain diets are going to be really hard for you to stick to. And so just keep that in mind when you're considering different diets. Also think about if that diet will easily fit into your lifestyle. So really think about your schedule, your time, how often you eat out now, and really think through the logistics of what this new diet would look like for you. And then also, again, think about if you like choices or if you prefer more structure, because some diets again tell you more specifically what to eat, and some other diets are more lenient and more broad, and you really get to pick and choose what it actually looks like. And so just kind of figure out if you like more choices or if you like more structure. Some other things to consider is to really think about your family. If you live with your family or with other people that you cook with and eat with, think about and ask them if they also find this diet appealing, if they find these foods appealing, or will you end up having to cook a separate meal for yourself on top of having to prepare food for other people, because that can be a big factor. Also, just with any diet, with any food plan, think about if you can really stay on it for a long term, because that's our whole goal with health and wellness is we want to make small life-lasting changes, not just something that you do for a couple of weeks and then go back to the way you were before. So really think about if it's something that you can do for a long period of time and really make it part of your lifestyle instead of it's just something that you do for a couple of weeks. Um, Also think about if the diet includes group support, if that's something that you want. There are diets that do include that, and so that could look like in-person meetings, online on social media, emails, or you might have a coach or a counselor that keeps in touch with you every week. Think about if the plan is something that you can follow as you like, or is there a specific, for as long as you like, or is there a specific beginning and end point? So if it's something that, it's a diet that you only do for 2 weeks, or is it something that it does encourage lifelong adherence to? And then lastly, just whenever you read over the plan and imagine yourself following it, do you feel happy and excited and optimistic about following it, or do you feel dread about having to do this diet and eat this way? So if you feel any type of dread or like you're going to have to motivate yourself to do this, then the plan might not be right for you. You want it to be something that you're excited about and that you look forward to eating these meals. And so some of that might be you just need to learn to enjoy healthy food. Um, but if you are not a big fan of meat, then certain diets wouldn't be for you. So as we conclude, those are just a lot of things to consider when you're looking at diets and trying to figure out what a balanced, healthy diet looks like for you. So thank you for listening.